the road is tough. I mean, you
Yes.
know this, right? The road is really tough and it can sometimes throw you the biggest curveball. But if you've got that team of people around you to support you, you'll get there. And I see it day
Mm-hmm.
in, day out. It takes longer sometimes than they ever thought it was going to take. And potentially it's not the dream family that they thought they were going to have.
Mm-hmm.
They'll end up with a family. And I think that's my biggest takeaway.
You're making your family for you. You're not making your family for the school moms, for the school dads. You're not making your family for approval. Like, this is your time to make your family and be eccentric.
During Pride, we often think about gay rights, right? But I think it's important to really think about all the colors of the rainbow. So that means every kind of family. And now more than ever, we really need to think about equality being so vast. There are many ways to build a family. And so today you're going to learn about a variety of things. You're going to learn about surrogacy and egg donation and gay families and step-parent families and how to be a single dad and how to meet a partner when you have children. So many things that will be important for you to learn and to understand that your path to parenthood is really important and doesn't need to look like anybody else's. As you may know, we offer weekly workshops inside of our community. Some of those workshops we offer to the public. On June 11th, we invite you to a special workshop. It's called Donor Conception 101. We're offering this workshop for free because it is so important and is so popular. So we are going to offer this workshop that's going to cover everything from choosing a donor to understanding family limits to understanding what you need to know about open donation. It's going to be a very basic but informative workshop at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on June 11th. I hope you join us. The information is in the show notes. From our Building Your Family community, this is the Building Your Family podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Schumann, author, researcher, and reproductive medicine therapist. As the leading destination for support and education for people using reproductive medicine to grow their families, we cut through the noise to provide you with research-based information, effective and actionable strategies, and the support that you need to feel better so you can get into the driver's seat of your life and build the family of your dreams. We look forward to seeing you inside. Welcome to the Building Your Family podcast. I'm so excited today to introduce you to the IVF Daddies. You will meet these great guys who not only work with people who are building their families, but have built their families through reproductive assisted technology as well. And I will tell you all about the things that you need to know about building your family, about surrogacy, about egg donation, and so much more. So without further ado, welcome to both of you, Richard Westoby and also Julio Gaggia. I hope I didn't mess up your name.
You did great.
My accent is not great. Good. So nice to meet you both and connect with you. And I'm so thrilled after watching your podcast to have you with me to talk about all of these important subjects and really to help the people out there have an easier path to parenthood. I think we all want that.
Thank you very much for having us. We've been watching yours and listening to yours for a while, so it's great to finally be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So why don't we start with your story, Richard, because before you guys met each other, you were on your path to parenthood yourself and had to navigate a lot on your own, as many of the people out there are also doing.
I have boy-girl twins that are 12. And my ex-husband and I started this process a long time ago, before podcasts, before your book, which I can see behind you, before the book I wrote on it as well. It was really trying to navigate a process without understanding what was happening. And we turned to some friends and they helped us, pointed us in the direction of an agency. I actually found Doctor watching a CNN show. And it was really just kind of the blind leading the blind. And on the back of that, when my twins were born, I took a year off and was writing almost like a diary for them for when they were older, of the decisions we took, why we took them, so that they would understand a little bit more about how they came about. And I actually turned that into a book. So it became a step-by-step guide to surrogacy in the United States.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And I've updated it a few times since. But that propelled me into public speaking about surrogacy. It propelled me into advocating for people, learning more, understanding more about the medical side of things. And here I am 12 years later, helping people around the world have a baby.
It's fantastic. That's so fantastic. So I'm just curious because I think we've faced this in our industry quite a bit, that people go to a fertility clinic that they hear about, or maybe their friend recommends them, or someone tells them something nice about this fertility clinic. And yet, if we were looking for a heart surgeon, for example, we probably would not choose our heart surgeon because our friend told us that he's a nice guy, right? We would probably really look for someone who had good statistics, somebody who maybe belonged to medical associations, maybe had hundreds, if not thousands of patients that they've seen over the years and had good success with them. So from your perspective, because you kind of started out trying to navigate these waters, not knowing much, how did you make that decision and how would you do it differently today?
Great question. I watched a CNN documentary. That was how I made my decision. Right or wrong, doing it now wouldn't do it that way. But that was how I found the doctor that we worked with. Today, I would definitely be looking at all the statistics. There are many, many different resources in the United States for working with doctors. The Society of Assisted Reproductive Technology, SSART, CDC, if it's still around. But then in addition to that, I do really think that reputation of doctor is really, really important. Because when you're talking to a doctor, you can get blinded by the terminology and all the different bits and pieces. But when you take a step back and talk to multiple different sources about whether or not that doctor and the team around them listened to you, understood your situation, were able to help guide you in a clear and transparent way, that is going to be a lot better than any research that you can find in a magazine. America's top doctors. Okay, great. But are you paying for that? Or are you actually, is that real? And I think that the conversations with people who've been through the process, who have no vested interest, that to me is very, very important.
So to look at the SART report, which we talk about here very often, and then to look at those doctors in that SART report and say, okay, let me take a look at these doctors and get a good sense of who I can connect with, who understands my particular scenario, and who can work with me.
There's always a challenge, right? The SART, the data from SART is already 2 years old. You report to SART, you have to have a pregnancy, a birth, and then report the year later. So there will be a time lag, but it's going to give you a really good indication.
Yes.
Right. And that I think is good. So you to your point, you look at SART, you go, okay, where does it, because you can filter it to where you live and all those different things, or not. You can literally go on to Men Having Babies. You can go on to any of these different organizations that are out there that have lists of doctors that are specialized in IVF with egg donors or with surrogates, and then kind of narrow it down that way. But yeah, I mean, there will be a process, and you've spoken about it many times on your podcast, and I think it's really good to be able to go, okay, not only am I listening to this person, but I'm looking at the resources that are now available in this industry, because it is an industry, to say 5 different unrelated people have said that this is a good doctor. Okay, I'm going to have a conversation with them. But again, once you've had that conversation, you need to make sure that they are listening to you, that they know what they're talking about, they're transparent with pricing, because again, remember, this is an industry, right? So you need to understand what it's going to cost you. But they're sitting there going, okay, I'm the doctor, I'm a very, very integral part of this, but there are other people as part of my team who are going to look after you. And if those people are there emailing back, responsive times are good, answering your questions, that's a really good sign of a team and a group that are going to look after you.
That's great advice. That's wonderful. And then I guess the next step was, as you were going through this, you also had to decide on a surrogacy agency.
Yeah.
And how did you do that?
Yeah. So look back on it now and I'm just like, wow. Friends, they're like, we use these. I was like, okay, great. Literally minimal research. This was 14 years ago. So very, very little information about this whole industry out there. And again, had a conversation with the agency. They were great. They gave us a very transparent look on the whole thing and how it worked. And then that led me into going, okay, great. I had a gut feeling. I trust them. I think it's going to be great. Now, looking back on it, I'm like, 100%, they were a very good agency. But I also think there's an element of, and I keep saying on my podcast, Julio's going to roll his eyes probably now.
Don't say it again.
There's a lot you don't know that you don't know, right? And you have to rely on those trusted resources around you to give you the landscape, to say, hey, I've done this. This is what I think. Your family is your family, but here, make the decisions with fully informed.
But this is the thing. This is the thing that I would like to interject, and because the example that you provided when it comes to looking for a heart surgeon, I broke my face on a boat last summer, and I didn't have time to look for an eye doctor. Like, I don't think you look for a heart surgeon. I think having alternative ways of having a family is almost like plastic surgery, right? It's like choice. It's something. It's not an emergency. Like, I don't think if you have a heart surgery, have a heart problem, you have the luxury to look for a good heart doctor. You're just waiting for a heart donor. You believe whatever doctor attend you first. And this to me is a luxury, is the ability to say, I want to create a family. It's a choice. So like a plastic surgeon, or like an eye doctor to get your glasses, or that type of doctor, you will go for referrals, right? You will make appointments, you will go with your gut feeling. But when I broke my face, I had to have surgery with the first, like, I have no idea what the name of my surgery was.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have the chance to say, oh, let me go to a third referral. I was in an emergency room. So whatever doctor was available, it was going to operate. And then I will follow up with the consequences. And so for him was sort of like that, because there was no many options. And then he started writing it into a book, because he wanted to send an email every day to his kids, but he said a book was better.
Nice.
And then we decided to turn it into a podcast. But I do believe that fortunately, IVF and surrogacy is a choice that you decide to take on board. It's not an emergency. So you have the luxury to say, let me meet doctors that understand where I'm coming from. Let me meet doctors that understand two men. Let me meet doctors that understand biracial couples. Let me meet doctors that understand two women. Let me meet,
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I also want people to feel empowered to know about SART and know that there is they do have the option to look at their doctor's statistics. But it is hard, as you're saying, to not know your doctor well and want to feel comfortable with your doctor and want to feel like you can trust this person, feel like you have a sense of connection and rapport with them. I agree with you. I think that that's so important. And I think that also relates to your agency, right? That you want to feel comfortable with your agency. And there is no SART report for agencies. It doesn't exist. So how do you advise people to choose their agency?
Great, because there is no regulation around agencies, right?
Right.
And again, I would say, look at how long they've been around. I would look at feeling. Do you get a good feeling with the person you're talking to? Again, are they promising you the earth or not? Because some people say, no, I can match you with a surrogate tomorrow. I'm like, okay, so why are you taking a day and then others are taking 3, 6, 9, 12 months? What's the difference? I think when you're looking at agencies, it's almost like you are the center of the universe, and you have your agency, you have your clinic, you have your lawyers, you have your egg donation company, whatever it is. They all know each other? Do they like each other? Do they work together? Because that's an unvested interest, saying, okay, I'm a clinic. I don't own this agency, but I work with them a lot. They look after my patients.
Yes. Great point.
Because if your clinic and your agency are one, do you really know if they're looking after you or not? I mean, here's a vested interest. Again, you can talk to your attorneys and say, hey, I'm thinking of working with these guys. What do you think? And they will give another So I really do believe that it takes a village, and we say this a lot. It takes a village to get you to where you want to be, because the people in
Mm-hmm.
your village all have an opinion. And as long as they're giving you good and bad and fully transparent on everything, you can then make that informed choice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's interesting, because to me, not working in the field at all, on understanding the agencies have no regulations, I compare it to like vitamins versus medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So a medicine is regulated by FDA, and vitamins, like your doctor might recommend you vitamins. You might go to the shop and get the gummy versions that have seed oils and good for you. And then you might read the bottles, you might take time for it, or you might look at the pretty package, or you might not even ask them too many questions or turn back the bottle. Going to conferences where you have one day of everything that has to do with medicine, and then the second day is lawyers, agencies, escrow, insurance, I panic and run, and I am just like, that no, like this is not like it's terrifying. Like the energy is different. Like it's just all about like when you have a baby. I mean, let's face it, humans are the most inefficient reproductive system in the world. So, but when you have a baby through natural ways, you don't think on what's going to happen if like all of this paperwork, see the embryos in the future, if you get into a car accident. Oh my God, I'm like, I'm out.
So much to think about. It's so true. Yes. And that's a great point, because I think that most parents to be come into this, particularly as you said, if you're using reproductive medicine to build your family, come into this and feel so overwhelmed. I mean, who remembers their 10th grade biology class, right? You're, sitting with the doctor and talking about, ovarian stimulation. You're like, what is going on here? I have no idea what you're talking about. It's a lot to take in. And I think, as you mentioned, the surrogacy agencies are not regulated, and that makes it so confusing. And as you're pointing out, Julio, like people very often will look at the website and say, oh, that's a very pretty website. And so that's very nice. And so maybe I should choose them. But as you said, Richard, experience is so important, because if, God forbid, you're in a state where they don't allow termination, how are these surrogates going to get out of state if they need to? Or now there's all this, these terrible repercussions for miscarriage, right? And so how do you get your surrogate out? How do you do all this? And if you have an agency who's been through these things so many times, chances are they'll be able to navigate those tough situations where maybe a new agency might not. And so I think that's a really, really good point.
To me, one of the most amazing things that I've learned out of all the 6 seasons that we have in the podcast, I would definitely go with an agency that the owner of the agency has been a surrogate and couldn't be a surrogate anymore.
And why is that? Why would you not go with an agency, let's say, that's run by a lawyer or run by someone else?
It's almost like when a coach or a therapy is trying to help you overcome something that they have never experienced.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if you're gonna get divorced, you want to go to a divorce attorney, right? You want to get. I've learned that there's a lot more love. There's a lot more. There's a lot more care for the surrogate when the owner of the agency have been a surrogate itself,
or has been through surrogacy. I would add that, because I think it's a lot of people that work in this field have lived the experience, right?
Yes.
You didn't.
I'm one of them.
You're one of them, exactly. You ended up adopting. You did, but you went through the gamut of all of the medical
All
things.
of it.
I went through IVF. He's now a co-parent to children through surrogacy. And I think it gives you different insight. It gives you the ability. Empathy is so valid in this world, and we need it. And to be able to sit with somebody at the beginning of this whole thing when they're going, I haven't got a clue what is going on. And you go, oh, I hear you. I was there. This is what I did. I'm not saying it's your pathway, but this is what I did. And just gaining that trust and that confidence because you've lived it, I think is a really very, very valid, Julio. I think people coming into this looking at going, oh, I can do this. I'm like, it's not as simple as that. There are so many nuances to making a very positive way forward, that if you've lived it, I think that's really important.
Yeah, because this is a relatively new field, right? So there's not like there's not like a university to get a degree on surrogacy agencies, or like you can get a doctor, you can get an IVF. This is personal opinion, and people that are listening can say what, like, if you're more Richard, more Julio, or more, what's your point. But I've seen agencies by gay guys. I've seen agencies by male parents. I've seen agencies. I would go with a woman that has been a surrogate, that have been a surrogate many times, and then they couldn't do surrogacy anymore because of the risk, and they turned it into an agency because they know exactly what it feels, the process, like, how the body works, the consequences, having kids, like, it's like, I personally would choose an agency like that. Like, me, I'm not saying any other agency is not right or wrong, unless I get a really good deal on any other agency.
Yeah, that's not so easy. It's such an expensive process. So if you had to kind of go through it again, you might say, we're going to find an agency that we like, that has been experienced, maybe that's been run by a former surrogate. What about your egg donor?
If I were to do this again, I have embryos. He would like to do it again, and I'm not there. For me, actually, the egg donor was one of the hardest parts.
Oh, come on, tell the truth. Tell the truth. How did you pick your egg donor?
I'm not Victoria Beckham.
How did you pick your egg donor?
Her brother was really hot.
Okay.
And we went through a whole bunch of profiles, and we actually ended up choosing an egg donor that looked a bit like my ex-husband's family, because there was a semblance. It meant she just triggered something inside in a good way that was like, wow, she looks like his niece. And I was like, yeah, I can see that.
Feels like family.
Exactly. She felt like part of the family, which for me was really important. And then it just turned out that her male family members were
a little bonus there. Little bonus.
Little added bonus. Yeah.
And so now, looking back, would you guys, if together you were to choose an egg donor tomorrow, do it differently?
I would do a medical screening. I will compare genetics that would be compatible with diseases, or like autoimmune diseases, or genetic links that will create complications in the future. I would look at that first.
Me too.
And then I will go more on the intellectual route of like Ivy Leagues, or like art, educational, or like.
It's really interesting because he's incredibly creative. So the fact that you're thinking, it's a funny conversation, right? It's like it's almost like you have to write down what are your top criteria. Because to me, education, I fundamentally believe that if you have the ability to teach someone, they're going to learn, right? I don't think education, unfortunately, I think it's a very socio-demographic, like, and I think that to me is kind of neither here nor there. But I think genetics are so important to make sure like inherited traits or things like that. For me, one of the things that really we did actually look at was a history of cancer. Was there a history of cancer in the family? Some of those are definitely passed down. But again, if I was to do it now, I probably would go back to starting with genetics, and then I would go by, do I have that? That reminds me of somebody.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like now, like 14 years ago versus now, like now you're more looking into Alzheimer's. You're looking more into other diseases more than cancer, like Alzheimer's is like diabetes, right? So
True.
I will look for a family that is relatively healthy. I will look for somebody that has a very like healthy lifestyle, like not stress, not bad eating habits, and also it's like dating. It's like when you're dating somebody and you say, look at their parents. I would look for the parents too, to see how
yeah, right. Genetics plays a big role, and at least we have some idea of what our child might inherit, right? So that's great information. So as you guys move ahead in this process with your children, I was wondering if you would talk a little bit about how your co-parenting experience works out, because as you know, there's so many single dads to be out there now. And I think that one of the concerns is, well, I'm no longer looking at the story as meet somebody, get married, then have kids. Maybe I'll have kids and then decide to partner later. And so, what would that be like for you guys? How can you explain what it's like to co parent, how it's been for you, Julio, kind of coming into this whole world of fertility treatment, surrogacy treatment, seeing these children who were born from a surrogate and an egg donor, and kind of immersing yourself in it? And what would you advise other people in the same situation?
That's a great question. I think the reality is, I think the paradigm has shifted. The need to have a partner in order to have a family is no longer there. And that is for male and female. It's relevant now. And I think what we're finding is more and more people are becoming empowered to say, this is what I want. And I'm going to do it either through an egg donor or a sperm donor. I mean, Julio is big into reality TV, so he can quote people that have gone through it on reality TV. But for me, it's really fascinating to talk to those people, because that fairy tale that we grow up with, which is find your prince, have your baby, like, you don't need that anymore. And I think
Right.
that's great. And to have the resources available now to go, I know what I want, I'm going to do it, is really good. And then what I've seen is there are a number of people who go down that route, and then they later down the line find somebody who wants to have a family. And when we met, it was really interesting because I was living in Spain and we met, and he was like, in his mind, he was like, I want somebody who has a family already, because there's security, there's safety, there's a whole host of different things that go along with that. And I think that again is for me, because when my ex and I split up, I was like, well, who's going to want me? I've got 2 kids, I've got responsibilities. I'm just going to focus on the children, and that's what it's going to be. And then he appeared, and I was like, oh. First of all, I was like, oh. And then I was like, and then I was like, wow, you want me for me, and then you want me with the kids for us, and then you want the kids for the kids, because we're all individuals. Like, there are 3 of us. And that I find really empowering, to have those conversations with people who can now say, I haven't found Mr. or Mrs. Right, and here we go. And I think that's really cool.
Well, I feel like something that is not talked about at all is step parenting, the LGBTQIA plus community. 3 parents, 3 moms. I remember the movie 3 Dads and a Baby, but not quite like step parenting.
Yes.
And if you think being a parent is difficult, being a step parent is a lot. It's like walking on a tightrope in the mountain in the middle of a storm. And then they will never be your kids. You don't have authority. And sometimes to me, it became a reality. Of course, there's a lot of bribing, negotiation, and just buying their love. But I come
like
from
a grandparent.
Like a grandparent, but younger and like wearing
Cuter.
the same skincare. And I come from my dad is on his 3rd wife, and my dad's second wife had the best thing that I've ever had was my sisters from my dad's second marriage, and she's my mom. Her mother is my mom, and she will not be my stepmom. And when I heard the kids saying, "I feel like I have 3 parents," that to me is when you get vindicated. You can't claim it. You can only let them express it. But it's tough. And I feel like now that we're starting to get into this nuance of like solo parenting, then it's like, who's going to want somebody with kids? Or like, who's going to want to raise another person's kids? And then, yeah, it's like walking on a tightrope on a mountain. And then the difference is like, if we fall, we choose each other every day, and we choose each other to climb up. And at the end of the day, for me, family is who chooses to show up for all of us. And then you learn along the way the things that when you try to have a little bit, like you can be the third child or you can be too strict, and then you can be saying something that, oh, automatically I'm telling him unconsciously that he's a bad dad, when in reality I'm just trying to say the kid did something that, in my opinion, I wouldn't tolerate as manners. And nowhere near in my head was criticizing his parenting skills, but I cannot compare 12 years together with 4. It's like I'm like new here, but I still, it's just, I will choose the climb and I will choose the tightrope every day. And we make an effort to let each other know that we choose each other every day. And actually, our arguments in the relationship are because I love the kids so much that like I feel like sometimes it would be a lot easier if I don't get along with the kids and I say, go to your room, go to your iPad.
Well, that's beautiful. I do want to point out though that, you know, when you're in this relationship, and I know a lot of people now are thinking about modern parenting, and you kind of just have to choose each other every day, which is a beautiful sentiment. But in the same regard, when you choose to partner with somebody who already has kids, you're also saying, I'm making an investment for my life with you because I can't just take this willy nilly, right? If you didn't have kids, we could have fun. And if it doesn't work out, we'll both move on. Now you're also getting other hearts involved, right? The hearts of the children are going to be affected if something happened to the relationship. So it's a huge commitment.
It's a huge commitment, but it also gives you, it's this weird, because we will have a super petty argument, like about, I can't even, like me cooking spaghetti for dinner. And then, you know, there are some people who would then take that to the next level, and then they'll just walk out and leave. Right. And I think by having the children, it grounds you in the relationship to the point where you can have those arguments. But to Julio's point is like, you're having the argument, and then you go, really? Like, come on. He's here. He's staying. That's just silly. Let's big
Move
picture
on.
again
Like
and move on.
Some people get diamonds. I got 2 major diamonds.
You did.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's wonderful. That's really
He's not
wonderful.
saying that when we're arguing about spaghetti, though.
He cooked like his favorite. He's a gourmet chef or bolognese.
I do like
Oh, nice. Very nice. I also want to mention that I've seen on your podcast and with other people, you've also done a tremendous amount of work. And I know you're advocating for, and we're talking about this during Pride, talking about visibility and talking about rights, which is so important to talk about in our political climate to make sure that everyone's rights are secured. And that's so essential right now. But I also noticed that you talk a lot about women's rights and pelvic pain and endometriosis and all of those things. So I'm wondering what made you think about doing that, because you have so much to fight for already. How did you guys decide that I also want to include all of these women's issues in our platform?
That's my part because I'm here to, like, I'm antagonistic. And for me to be antagonistic, you really have to be educated in what you're fighting for. Everything that I've done, everything that I've worked is unconsciously involving supporting women and women business owned, anything related. I have 2 moms, 3 sisters, and 2 nieces, a daughter. And the fact that nobody have asked you, do you want to check your egg count? Or the fact that you have to wait until you're 16 to be on the app Flow to know your period. The fact that you have to wait 5 years to ask and demand for an endometriosis or PCOS test. Because I don't know what does people do in a gynecologist and get a smear. I don't even know what a smear is. And then there's a lot of things that women have to fight really, really hard to, like 3 times as hard to be believed and 3 times as hard to get probably half of what a heteronormative white male will get. And as a gay person or non-binary in the LGBTQI community, just blinking is a political movement. I got out of the womb on a C-section. I was already like, any step that I would take forward, it was already a battle and a wall to break. So for me, it's easy. For us, is like having kids and the LGBTQIA community plus is we already know there's a battle. But when you're a woman and when you're trying to tell no to your body, because the guilt trip is you have to go to school, you have to be delicate. I remember my niece saying at 5 years old, screaming to like, I don't understand what delicate is. It's like, why you keep saying the word delicate to me and not to my brother? It's like, and or like if the boy cries one, the world stops, and the girl can cry all the
Yes.
time. And so now I have two sisters. They're very professional, making an amazing amount of money for their age. And then it's always like you have to go to school, da da da. And then when they're getting right there to their dream job, oh, now you cannot marry to corporate, like you're gonna scare men. When are you gonna get married? Time is taken. Like, it's always like any step they're pushing you to go, there's always gonna guilt you about it. And then
Yeah.
it's in my dream and my world, I want to be like, oh, you graduated university, my present for you is freeze your eggs, have your career, party, go on trips, live the best life, go to Ibiza, go to Mykonos, run the world, be the best CEO in the world. And whenever you want to have kids, he's the god. Like yesterday was the birthday of his god's daughter today, and the mother carried the baby at 50.
Yeah. So you feel very strongly about equality in general.
I
Not
feel very strongly about equal pay, equal joy, equal commitment, equal responsibility, equal pleasure.
And I have a girl. So for me, it was all about making sure that she has everything at her fingertips if she needs it. And I think those two things marry up really well because I'm educating myself on behalf of her to be able to say when she's 20, okay, having a painful period every month is not normal. I will never go through that. I don't know that. But if I've spent 20 years talking, investigating, learning, educating, at least I can then help her and others. Because again, we are very, very fortunate to have a platform. And if we use that platform to get people like doctors and even you, like we'll have you on our podcast because the work that you do is so important too. It's not necessarily, it's the emotional side, it's the understanding, right? It's the ability to give everybody that empowerment of their own self and body. That's what drives me.
And also sometimes I feel like we're getting there to the point of, oh, it's perfectly fine to freeze your eggs, but are you going to get a sperm donor? Like somebody that got out of jail and came in a cup and probably for a pizza and 10 euros or $10, or like the stigma of a sperm donor, like that is like, are you going to be a single mom from a bank? Like why? Or why? When have you heard a man saying, I don't know, I'm not sure if that's going to be my baby because I'm not carrying it. Like, so I don't know. I don't know if we should have babies because if I don't carry it, I will not feel like the dad. When have you heard that? So for me, is more about, it's the liberation. It's like the laws are changing. They're blocking IVF and surrogacy, but then you can easily go be in the system, be a teenager, get pregnant, and just not have the means to provide for your family, but you're in the government system. They love that. But empowered kids or high standard families is a potential threat for the government.
So we have to keep advocating so that people can continue to do the right thing for themselves and their children.
Correct.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think that those are amazing points. I really appreciate it. Before we wind down, are there other things that you feel that our audience should know or lessons that you've learned that you feel are really valuable? I want to make sure we share them with the audience.
I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways from the last 10 years is to not give up. The road is tough.
Yes.
I mean, you know this, right? The road is really tough and it can sometimes throw you the biggest curveball. But if you've got that team of people around you to support you, you'll get there. And I see it day
Mm-hmm.
in, day out. It takes longer sometimes than they ever thought it was going to take. And potentially it's not the dream family that they thought they were going to have.
Mm-hmm.
They'll end up with a family. And I think that's my biggest takeaway.
To me,
It's
my
wonderful.
takeaway is nobody knows what they're doing. Nobody has to figure it out. Like, you don't need to be, if you hit 40s, like, nobody knows what they're doing. Everybody is just getting along day by day. And one of my takeaways is when Richard decided to have kids, it was 14 years ago. And it was like this scrutiny of, if he goes out, he's neglecting the kids, to the point that he raised them so heteronormative that he forgot to raise them the way he wanted to raise them. And now this is your time. If you're making your family for you. You're not making your family for the school moms, for the school dads. You're not making your family for approval. Like, this is your time to make your family and be eccentric, go out, travel the world. Like, I grew up with women. I grew up like in a house full of girlfriends, friends of my sisters, like helping each other put the tampon on. And it's like my mom being single with 3 kids, divorced, like traveling the world while working. It's just like a heteronormative couple. My mom and my dad got divorced, solo mom, 3 kids. Then, it's just like my family, like we all went to my dad's 3rd wedding. My mom, my sisters from the 2nd marriage, my stepfather, like everybody went to my dad's 3rd
Wow.
wedding. So, like, what is a blueprint? Make your own pink print, red pink,
Mm-hmm.
like any print, any color you want to do it.
Yes, I think that's beautiful. And I think that's so true that we all have to follow our own path and that the research is going to show us only so much, although research is important. Everybody has to be true to themselves. And I'm so grateful that you guys are out there advocating for families and helping people seek the truth, but also seek all this really, really important support that people so desperately need. Because as we see in our culture right now, help is diminishing. Help is diminishing within the fertility market. Help is diminishing in our country. And so I'm very grateful for you guys to be out there and helping people.
Thank you very much for having us. It's been an amazing opportunity finally to get on your podcast. Thank you.
And thank you for believing in
You're
us,
welcome.
because sometimes, like, we're also not knowing what we're doing or saying, or like what's happening afterwards.
We're all figuring it out.
If somebody believes in us, we're very, very happy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, once we get off, I'll have to start a fan club.
Thank you very much.
All right. Great. Well, thank
you.
you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you to all of you who are out there. I know your time is so precious. So thank you for spending it with us. Please continue to fight for what's right and help those around you, because we never know who's struggling and who needs something. So always lend a hand and make sure you're there and keep coming back, because that's how we keep going. And I will see you next week. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this was helpful to you. And if you'd like more personalized support, more information, and more education, you can find it in the show notes under the Building Your Family community. We'd love to see you inside. And if you were interested in today's topic, you will really like this video.